Welcome everyone, Christine here with the discussion about the Dwarves and Total War Warhammer 3, patch 5.0, Thrones of Decay. There have been quite a few changes to the Dwarves, especially with respect to their grudges. And now, the Dwarves have the ability of confederating lords from a distance, including Grombrindal. The possibilities here with Grombrindal are quite very interesting, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. But first off, before I confederate Grombrindal, there are a few things I need to mention about the grudges and maybe clear up some misconceptions that people have, and also highlight how things are actually in terms of grudges in the game. Like you can see over here that certain settlements are at 1,000 grudges, but at the same time, there's other settlements, like for instance, the entirety of Zarnagrund is only 34 grudges per each settlement. So there are some things that gain a lot of grudges, particularly factions that are hostile towards you, have bad diplomatic relations with you, and aren't a passive faction like the Conclave over here. Grudges can be gained in different ways. Not quite sure what those ways are 100%, to be quite honest with you. I mean, it does say various things like, you know, that it's gained through faction actions, negative diplomacy, greenskin actions. Well, faction actions would be things like, I imagine like because Wurzag's been at war with Karakazul, now he's at war with me. That's the reason we're getting so many grudges. But one of the things you may have seen in quite a few videos with the Age of Reckoning is that there are quite a few people, including myself, who have gotten to a point where the required grudges for an Age of Reckoning, even relatively early on in a campaign, require an enormous amount of grudges for the current Age of Reckoning that they are on. So for instance, over here, I have 16,000. That's pretty good, but I've seen campaigns, I've played campaigns myself, where it can be 30,000, it can be 40,000, it can be over 100,000 in terms of grudges required in an Age of Reckoning. So what's going on over there? How do you go from 9,200, where you start in your first Age of Reckoning? The second one that I had in this campaign was 12,000. The third one that I'm on right now is 16,000. How do you go from that to over 40,000, 30,000? It has to do with confederations. So whenever you confederate a faction, like a faction confederation requires you to reach a certain level of grudges. And wouldn't you know it, in this case, my Age of Reckoning requires 16,000. The confederations are 17,000, almost 18,000, 19,000, 17,000 almost. That's pretty close to the requirement for my current Age of Reckoning. And if I hit the button to confederate Grombrindal over here, you can see that we've gone from 16,000, 17,000, 18,000 to 31,000 grudges required to confederate the Lord with a 5-turn cooldown. Now this is the total grudges that you've done in a particular campaign. But what isn't necessarily stated with an Age of Reckoning is that the number of grudges that you need to complete an Age of Reckoning also increases the more you confederate. I'm not quite sure that's intended with Confederation. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just a bug that Creative Assembly needs to fix. And there he is, glorious Grombrindal. We'll get to him in just a moment. And, Malekith has been a bad boy over here. I'm guessing he was going to beat up Grombrindal in this situation. Or was very close to it. So, now I've confederated Grombrindal. The number of grudges that I'm required to reach for the next confederation have increased. But so will the next Age of Reckoning. So, in 7 more turns, the number of grudges that I'm required will also increase. But here's the thing. You can obviously confederate through regular diplomacy still. Like, you don't, like, this is beneficial for distant confederation. It's guaranteed, but you can still do confederation through regular diplomacy. Especially with these minor dwarf factions. And the reason that's important is I believe it's a bug. I don't necessarily think it's intended. Maybe Creative Assembly will let us know. Maybe they'll fix it. I mean, there's a reason it's called development parameters. There's certainly been issues that have been fixed so far in campaigns. So one of the problems that exists, and the reason we get to those extremely high values, is not because people are confederating legendary lords. Is because, like, if you're playing a campaign as Grimm, for instance, you're going to confederate Barak Var, Karak-Azul, Zufbar. You will do that in a natural way. But if you do that, you're increasing the number of grudges you require for the next stage of Reckoning. What that means really is, like, confederating the minor faction is going to make things much harder in terms of an Age of Reckoning. Makes sense for the major lords, absolutely, because they may have a good amount of territory. Even if they don't, they're still legendary lords. But for minor factions that may give you, like, you know, free settlements or something like that, yeah, that's a bit ridiculous, I think. But that is currently what is happening with Grudges. I do wish to point out something. That people believe, like, oh, you now have to play very, very aggressively as the dwarves. You don't. Like, yes, I've taken a lot of territory in this campaign, but for instance, over here, when I took some of these settlements, I was getting, like, only 100 grudges per settlement. This one was worth, like, 800 between two armies and the settlement itself, but, like, this one settlement, which is even mountain region, and a key dwarf settlement was, like, 100. So you don't necessarily gain a lot of grudges just because you're heavily aggressive. In fact, in the Grombrindal campaign, which I showed off in my Dwarf rework video, there are many wars and many battles I fought where I barely gained any grudges. Like, there's, for whatever reason, you don't necessarily gain a huge amount of grudges against Chaos, for instance. And, like, you know, I was playing campaign as Grombrindal, I went towards Sigvald, and yeah, he had like 100 grudges, 70 grudges, 30 grudges, 40 grudges, something like that. So that's something you gotta keep in mind. I do think Chaos is possibly giving too few grudges. Like, you look at any elf faction currently in the game, and it's like, it's a lot of grudges over here to burn down Alpha-Loren. Oh, invading the Chaos Wasteland, we don't care, basically. We just want to kill the elves. That's how the dwarves are right now. So yeah, maybe subject to change even before it goes fully live. So that's something worth talking about. And that's what you need to know. If you confederate a faction, you're going to increase the number of grudges, but you can also delay in next Age of Reckoning. So let's take a look at how that is with regards to the delay. So what happens when you delay an Age of Reckoning? Like over here, I got the highest tier for the previous one, delayed it, and for 10 turns it's saying I'm going to get growth, control, all those benefits for 10 turns. The army is going to stay 10 turns, not 20. And then I'm guessing all these benefits, and or potentially downsides, if you did really badly, are just going to disappear. That's what delaying an Age of Reckoning does by the looks of things. So yeah, you will miss out on the Grudge Settler units. These are pretty powerful units, but you are only going to get one of each. Some people are saying, oh, you can get Hammerers with Frenzy. I mean, they're still Hammerers. They just get Frenzy on top of that. I mean, things like Trollhammer Gyrocopters, absolutely. Really solid. Like, Trollhammers are quite a bit different in this patch. And, you know, longer range Iron Drakes. Like, I'd say the most useful things over here, like Trollhammers, Iron Drakes, and just to a far lesser extent, the Quarrelers of Grey Weapons. But keep in mind, you only get one unit of each type, even if you max out the Grudge. So, I mean, I may have 2 flame cannons there, but that's because I didn't recruit one previously. Like, yeah, I'm not necessarily too interested in flame cannons. That's what happens when you delay an Age of Reckoning. Let me just reload and show how many grudges I'm going to need for the next one after confederating Grombrindal and also confederating Barak Var in this situation. So over here, started a new Age of Reckoning. By the way, just a side note here, if you ever want to farm experience as the dwarves, just take the Silver Pinnacle and start trying to do the Sealed Tombs. You'll be fighting endgame armies over here pretty quickly. Yeah, I thought that Grudge would be a lot easier to do than it actually is. Jeez. Neferata is coming, that's for damn certain. You want grudges? You want to play more passively and get grudges and tons of money and experience? Yeah, the dwarves clearly need to be hyper aggressive. This is certainly an interesting situation, and these two armies are just the last tip. Like, I actually lost the silver pinnacle, got it back. Okay, so right now, after 2 confederations, I am required to get 44,000 grudges. So Barrack and Grombrindal. That's what I got over here in this campaign. For a confederation, I am required to get to 47,000, 48,000, well, 49,000, 47,000. So, and Malachi's not going to be on that list, right? Once the DLC is going to come out, I imagine. So the number of grudges required increases exponentially with the number of confederations you do. So just worth pointing out, that's how it works. And yes, we've made Malekith pay in this campaign. Now, pretty sure this is a bug with regards to minor factions. Don't necessarily think this is intended, or maybe it is. We'll see on launch. Because there are things that they are going to fix. There are things that they have stated they will fix, like Gotrek and Felix. There's a bug with not being able to get Gotrek in this version. So, yeah, that probably will be changed. But now let's talk about Grombrindal. So one of the problems in Grombrindal's with Grombrindal, rather, not in his campaign, but one of the problems with Grombrindal is he's very far away from all the other dwarves. So if you're playing any other dwarven campaign, it was not quite impossible to get him, but very, very close to that. Because outside of like sending a hero, and it's not like you had tons of heroes as the dwarves, outside of sending a hero or a lord on a boat trip to go meet Grombrindal and hopefully confederate him before Malekith wiped him out, because the vast majority of times Malekith will wipe him out. The only thing you could really do when you were playing a campaign as the dwarves was either end up coming over here once he got wiped out to confederate him, and maybe in the few rare situations where he survived and established diplomatic relations, but that would take dozens and dozens of turns, so you wouldn't really make that much use of Grombrindal except in a very, very long campaign. Or you could use the Recruit Defeat the Legendary Lords mod, so if Malekith defeated him, then you would gain him as a lord. But you obviously were not going to fight over here, you wouldn't gain this landmark, so that was not especially great, I would say. But now, you can consistently and 100% get Grombrindal as a Confederate Legendary Lord. You might still end up in a situation where he gets wiped down by Malekith by the time you confederate him, but you can at least consistently get access to him. And for all the changes that have come with the Dwarf rework, this is pretty big, I would think. See, Grombrindal is in a lot of ways one of the most absurd Legendary Lords in the game through his skill line, but not his special skill line, though that's pretty decent itself. Like, he gets 15% campaign movement range, various benefits, etc. Gotta love the new Iron Drakes and ammunition for Iron Drakes and War Machines. The dwarves are going to war over here, but no. And yeah, vigor loss reduction. But it's not this skill line that makes him powerful. There's also things like, Time of the Ancestors, but that only affects things when you are playing him. Maybe you should get that Living Ancestors even when you're not playing him, but that is a crucial aspect of his faction effects. So don't get this particular skill because there's no value in it when you confederate him. But what's really special about Grombrindal is his blue skill line. It's a unique blue skill line that has always been exceptionally powerful. So you get plus 3 recruit rank, plus 15% recruitment cost, plus 15% campaign movement range for all characters, all armies. Because if you hover over this, it says an army's base campaign movement cannot be increased. So it is an army. And you can test this. Like, you can start the campaign as Grombrindal, fight his first 2 quest battles, you'll get to rank to the ability of getting the first rank, which is 5%, and you can, the moment you spend skill points in this, you do notice a difference on armies, not just heroes like some people might think. So no, it does affect armies. And by the way, Grombrindal is absurd because he gets plus 30% campaign movement range total, because pretty damn certain these two stack. I know actually they stack. You can't go higher than 50%, but you might reach that movement speed cap, campaign movement range cap with him, an engineer, and yeah, this blue skill line. 6% casualty replenishment. So Rune Lords and Dwarf Lords, they get 5% each. For Rune Lords, it's a choice. For Lords, it's a guarantee. Then with Rat Poison, so you do get a good amount of faction-wide. Like, you get 11% faction-wide casualty replenishment, 5%, so 16%. Outside of everything else. You also have the inspirational skill, which does stack with this. So that's particularly useful. And then 1 global recruitment capacity. He also has lightning strike, but that's obviously only for him to use. When I was playing my campaign as Grombrindal, this is why I was able to take all of Nagron, all of Wolfwan, good portion of the north, like, you know, deal with Hellebron, and take the entirety of the balance. Now, mind you, I got lucky in that situation because both Belegar and Forgrim did pretty well in that campaign, and they were able to take a good portion of the territory here in the Battlelands. So that's why I was able to do that, because it's like Forgrim and Belegar. Well, Belegar did well against Ikaclaw. Forgrim did well against the Skaven. So he took out a lot of the balance, and yeah, I just took advantage of that particular situation in that campaign. But 15% campaign movement range, faction-wide, is a pretty big deal, on top of whatever other faction effects that you have. So these alone, these benefits alone, are pretty powerful and could easily be considered faction effects. Keep in mind, Grombrindal, when you do play him, has other faction effects. So yeah, he's still pretty absurd. Whether or not he's the best Dwarf Ledgering Lord with the patch, that remains to be seen. I don't have a firm opinion on that just yet. This is not a review or anything like that. But certainly is going to change the dynamic of your camping, because being able to move faster, and obviously, you know, you have the Undrawing when you unlock that. You have other, like, all of this combined is quite bloody insane. When you put everything together, it like ends up being an absurd situation in a Dwarven campaign. Obviously, there might be a benefit in playing Grombrindal, or a significant benefit in playing Grombrindal himself, because you do get frozen climate as suitable climate, so you have a lot more territory of the campaign that you can take. Pity that Forgrim can't do it. Not sure if Ungrim can. He may or may not be able to. I don't remember. I'm pretty certain, like, Forik can't, Belegar can't. Could be wrong on Belegar. Yeah, I haven't looked at, you know, suitable climates for other Dwarf Lords. I don't play Ungrim. I barely play Belegar. But this is a gigantic difference in Dwarven campaigns. On its own, like, ignoring everything else that they've done for Dwarves, just the reliability of getting Grombrindal absolutely changes the way you play a campaign right now in Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. Because, yeah, you can get to trouble spots faster, or you can just sit on your ass in the Silver Pinnacle and abuse Neferata's Doom stacks if you want to. I wonder if it's Neferata or Nagash at this point, considering what we're dealing with over there. Like, I think I dealt with 10 endgame vampire armies already over here. How many people does Forgrim must kill right here, right? He's already rank 38. He's been doing work there. Suffice to say. So, yeah. That's how Grudges really work. That's how the requirements for Age of Reckoning works. And that's the potential that Grombrindal provides in a Dwarven campaign. And that's, you know, just the fact we got that Confederation for an instance. Also, I think, like, if you're playing Grombrindal, it helps, the Distant Confederation really helps solve one of his issues, in the sense that he was very isolated. So he was fun to play in a short campaign, but in a longer one, not quite as much. But now, you can play a long campaign at Grombrindal and conquer the freaking world, or the entire northern part of it, minus the Empire, right? Or you may want to conquer the Empire, actually, because Elspeth's defeat rate. Also, I just want to point out, Vlad's been a really, really bad boy. Actually, what has this guy done? It's like, Vlad's already a war criminal. What have you done to be worse than that? Jeez. Well, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to be able to defeat him over here. That is, I mean, I want to point this out. Vlad is still Vlad. Like, if you think Vlad is easy to take down, no. It's just like there's the ranged combat, but changes make it give you the ability of doing it, but it's like you can still obliterate it if you're not careful. Ghosteen signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications. Stay tuned for more.